It's day 4, technically day 5, because you may have noticed we missed a day. Life kind of just ran away from me yesterday and I didn't get to it, but I hope that that gave you time to marinate and digest the last couple days' information. We have had another tragic shooting. I live in San Diego, so today we lost an officer to a violent shooting. Another officer was hospitalized. That is part of my community, the police department. So it has been a hard day. But I will say the beauty of the way the community came together, law enforcement community, the beauty of the way other people in San Diego's community have come together to show love and respect for one another and for law enforcement officials as human beings has been really powerful, and just a nice, wonderful thing to be a part of. We are reading pages 28 through the top of 37 today. Again, not exactly 10 pages, but I think you're getting the idea of how we're going about this. And it's particularly poignant today that we're still talking about rules, which, if you remember, are the bullshit rules that govern our lives, that are outdated, that we need to move on from, that perhaps keep us locked in by fear and any number of irrational spaces. It's good. It's poignant. It's relevant. And forgive me today if I have a hard time sticking on track. I'm just still kind of reeling. But I think that doing this video is important, not only because it's in integrity with my promise to do 10 pages a day. P.S. I didn't even read 10 pages for myself yesterday. I worked a 12-hour day, and by the time I got home, I was wiped. So I think it's, like I said, bear with me. And I appreciate your time and your patience through this video. I'll try to keep it at the regular 10 to 15 minutes. So let's dive right in. With that having been said, 5 ways that we take on rules. And I'm going to go through these one by one with just a little bit of what he says and my own thoughts on each one, just so everybody can get kind of an idea about the whole concept, right? So these would be what he refers to as the infection mechanisms. I think we talked about in one of the previous videos that it's a contagion. Some of this stuff is contagious. So one of the 5 infection mechanisms is childhood indoctrination. Kids, right? Kids are malleable, shapeable. Their minds are just wholly created by outside influences up to a certain point, right? I mean, kids have a lot of questions, their way of understanding the world is shaped by people in their lives, the people closest to them, their parents, their siblings, their authority figures, really giving them the boxes in which to place their experiences, the way the things that they hear. Again, sorry. Childhood indoctrination, I think, it's pretty simple when you think about it. But he kind of puts out a word to the wise when dealing with that, to tread carefully with your kids about these things. And I'm not gonna step on anybody's toes here, because I do not have children. Okay, I'm just gonna put that out there. I have no children. I do think it's important to be aware of the things that we say to our children, the things that the beliefs that we pass on in our children. I think it's hugely poignant to discover the rules for ourselves and refuse, because again, rule is a bullshit rule, refuse to pass that on to our kids. And, we look at our lives, I'm not saying this, I love my parents, I love them. I think every set of parents in the world, single or set, either way, is doing the best they can with what they have, oftentimes. Well, I'll say most of the time. And that's a key thing to point out, with what they have, with their set of beliefs. Obviously there are shit parents out in the world, right? But the ones who are trying, I think, are doing the best they can with what they have. So what they've gotten passed down from their parents, who got it from their parents. But we're in a particular space right now where we can question that. We don't have to pass on the things, even from our own parents, that don't work for us. And it doesn't have to be a disrespectful sort of experience. Just, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't serve me. So I don't believe that anymore. Again, much different process than that, actually. But the point being, the health, the wellness, the mental well-being of your kids depends on releasing the shit in your life, the baggage that we all get from our parents and from our upbringings, and deciding to believe something else, to teach our kids something else, more expansive. And the words are escaping me, but I think you understand where I'm going with this. Let me just move on. The second is authority figures. This is huge. They're powerful installers of rules. Parents, caregivers, relatives, teachers, clergy, friends. Because we give them authority, we're also vulnerable to those who pass down rules that they either seek to manipulate us with, or that they genuinely believe themselves, however wrongly. Another thing that ties in here that he writes about, and I think is really important for right now, because unfortunately the concept of the way our political system is, and that's another soapbox, I'll stand on that later, but part of it is fear-based politics. And it's common for politicians to gain support via fear-mongering. And it has different levels, obviously, but I think it's really obvious in our culture today. And he writes this, and I absolutely agree. We need to stop buying into this type of misuse of authority. Fear festers into pain, into hatred, into disease and poison in our culture. It is obvious, it is plain as the hand in front of my face right now that is true. We need to give that shit up. Give it up. Cold turkey. Do not be influenced by fear-based politics. We can come from a place of love and compassion and the desire to deeply understand one another as humans. As much as we want to be understood, other people also want to be understood and heard and loved. Let's move on to the third, the need to belong. I've heard it said, and I can agree with this. I agree with it in my own life, that three of the basic needs of humans, and we're not talking about like food, that kind of thing, but like the spiritual, internal kind of needs, are love, belonging, and safety and security. Safety and security are the same, so that's not four, it's actually three. And so thinking tribally, we are tribal as human beings. He writes, in order to be a part of a tribe, we take on the tribe's beliefs, irrational as those may be. So in exchange for acceptance, we pay a price in individuality and independence. And I won't get into this for too long because we're heading into 10 minutes here, and there's still a couple to go. But he's got this great quote in here by Tim Urban, who refers to blind tribalism. And he says humans long for the comfort and safety, of certainty, and nowhere is conviction more present than in the groupthink of blind tribalism. I mean, you can look at the example of high school students and bullying, and nothing against high school students. I mean, obviously, I think bullying is just ridiculous, but again, what's there come from? They want to belong. The fear of not belonging is such that they're willing to cause pain, to project their own pain on another person. And this is anybody. This is not just high school students, obviously. But they're willing to project that pain onto another person in order to belong, because that seems to be the way to do it. Social proof is number 4. It's that everyone's doing it, so it's okay. He calls it approval by proxy. And then he says something that I really like is, we believe that what someone else tells us to save ourselves the effort of assessing the truth of it for ourselves. I don't think I need to go any further into that one. Number 5 is our internal insecurities. This one's great. This one is so me. So me. He calls it the meaning-making machine in our heads. This is the way we rationalize, the way we put things and categorize things and make things make sense, right? And he says, the meaning-making machine in our heads is constantly creating meaning around the events that we observe in our lives, particularly when they involve people we are seeking love or attention from. Okay, back to belonging. Have you ever created meaning in your head about someone's attitude or feelings towards you because of something they do? Yep. Done it all the time. So many times. How somebody's body language, facial expressions, that if I'm feeling insecure about something I've said or that I've done, or wanting to be accepted or laughed at, or, whatever, and somebody responds in a way that I'm not expecting, womp womp. And that's awkward. And now they're obviously thinking that I'm an absolute fool, I'm a failure, the meaning-making machine, right? Just layers and layers and layers of insecurity. And so he tasks people with discovering what your rules are, discovering where they came from, and approaching that from a place of non-judgment, just of curiosity. And I agree with this. This is a tenet of my coaching, is curiosity and not judgment. Judgment puts us into a shame place, into a guilt place, into a fear place, whereas curiosity can put us into a place that we can affect change and say, well, that's interesting. I didn't really realize I'd done that before. I don't think that works. Okay, what does work? And recognizing that this isn't going to happen like all overnight. This is programming, right? If we were like a computer, and I love using this analogy, but if our mind is like a computer, if you've ever had an issue with your computer going slow or something like that, and you check out the programs that are running, you may not even have any open programs, but there's this whole list of stuff that's like filtering through in the background, right? Your computer's just constantly humming and working regardless of whether or not you're actually doing anything. That is our background programming. It's constantly running. It's constantly making sense of our world based on that programming. And so you don't just go in, I guess you could try to go in and just wipe the hard drive, but we're people. We're not computers. So it's a growing and it's learning, but we're here on this earth to grow and to learn and to expand and, in my opinion, to love and to be loved. He talks about, really quickly here, and I'll end it on this, but putting a dent in the culturescape or in the universe even. And he says this, and I'll leave it on this note. At first, a certain person, perhaps you, decides to move away from viewing the world like everyone else. You get labeled a misfit, a rebel, a troublemaker. But then you do something original and wild. Some people will succeed, and when they do, they make a dent in a culturescape. And that's when a misfit is labeled a visionary. I'll see you tomorrow.